Welcome back to Out of the Blue, the podcast, where real people share those unexpected life altering moments that change everything and remind us how even our darkest detours can lead us toward purpose, healing, and hope. I'm your host, Vernon West, joined by my son and co host, Vernon West III, musician, artist, and the creative mind behind our show's logo and theme song. Today's guest is someone whose story truly embodies the heart of this show, Dr. Nicole Labor. Her journey began on what looked like a clear, well planned path, growing up in a loving, normal suburban family, studying hard, and following her dream of becoming a doctor. But out of the blue, that path took a sharp and devastating turn, one that would ultimately define her calling. Nicole found herself in rehab, addicted to heroin, her future hanging by a thread. Yet, from that crucible of pain emerged a fierce compassion and an unshakable purpose. What began as her personal fight for recovery became her life's work, helping others break free from addiction and dismantling the stigma that surrounds it. Today, Dr. Labor is one of the nation's leading voices in addiction medicine, a board certified physician, medical director at multiple treatment centers, and president of the Laborhood Change Project, where she brings education, empathy, and raw honesty to communities across the country. She's also the author of The Addictaholic Deconstructed and The Addiction Workbook, two powerful tools that bridge the gap between science, recovery, and real life. We're honored to welcome her to Out of the Blue to talk about transformation, truth, and what it really means to turn your deepest struggle into your greatest source of service. Welcome, Nicole, to Out of the Blue. Let's dive in.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And thanks for that lovely introduction.
Well, you earned it. It's all you. Let's start at the beginning. Let's start at that transformation. You grew up in this wonderful family, and what happens? How did your addiction start? What brought you into that world? And then never mind how you got out of it.
Well, I mean, let's be honest, right? I mean, we know there's some genetic component and we know that it takes a trigger of some kind. But yeah, I would say that my childhood was happy and joyful and there was lots of good and my family was very strong and closely bonded. Um, and I did suffer some sexual abuse as a child though. And I don't think I ever really dealt with that in the right way. So then when I started, or when I first was introduced to alcohol, both my genetic capacity to consume large amounts of it suddenly and easily combined with sort of this, this portion of my brain that I had shut down. I think the two were like this very potent cocktail that launched this addiction. And I started using substances pretty regularly, but also maintaining this dual personality, right? It was a very good student, followed rules, good kid, didn't violate curfew and didn't sneak out and didn't lie and cheat and steal and all this stuff, but I was also using substances without anybody really knowing. And I felt kind of proud of myself and I really liked the chameleonism of it. I liked feeling like I was like smarter than everybody. I was duping everyone.
Wow.
Um,
I can
yeah.
so relate to that. That's really relatable. I swear to God, that rings so many bells with me because I even shared once at a meeting that I thought I was going to be the first one who's going to be able to do it in safety. I was going to find a way to keep myself high all the time. I was going to have everything I needed, an ample supply. I would never run out. I would never go into withdrawal. I'd have what I need, and everyone never would know, and people would love me. Yeah, they would love me. Well, I was wrong.
Well, and some of my friends like to remind me from like back then that I would talk about how I was going to have these like like big mansion and I was going to have all these beautiful glass bongs as vases and decorating the house and like because I was going to be, the person that can do it all.
Yeah, the dream of every druggie, really,
Yeah,
the
I
the
dream.
high functioning addict.
super high fun. Like I am just the epitome of high
Oh,
functioning. That's going to be me.
Yeah.
yeah. So it's a fantasy, but it's so like it's really alluring, you know. I mean, when I was in the throes of my own addiction, I kept thinking that someone, when I finally did get help and got out of it, the thing that helped me most was the guy said, "Don't, there's nothing wrong with you. You just wanted to feel good. There's nothing wrong with that." And I said, "Whoa, that makes sense." And then I dealt with it a whole different way. But go ahead, tell us more.
Well, I mean, it just feels like, I don't think I had this goal in life. I'm going to be a physician. I want to help people. I'm going to do these great things. And the fear of giving up that dream was terrifying. And then, but yet here I am actively using and kind of not knowing how to live life without using substances. And so I'm afraid of giving up that dream. And so marrying the two into this great functional fantasy was kind of the only way that I think my brain could comprehend how to keep moving forward because I didn't think I could give up either one.
Now tell me, did you think, because you're going for a doctor, right? I'm imagining, because I was never going for a doctor, I was a musician. I'm imagining if you're going for a doctor, you're thinking, yeah, I'll just prescribe myself what I need. You know what I mean? You have unlimited access.
That was part of it. It was also things like if you work in the emergency room, if you work as a surgeon, if you work as an anesthesiologist, like you don't even need to prescribe things. Like you have access to the raw materials. I could just take the drugs.
Really, a junkie's dream. It's a junkie's dream. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah, but here's me though. This is my thought process, right? So I'm in medical school and I'm going to these ERs, and that's where, of course, I'm getting my supplies and my paraphernalia and everything. But the drugs were, I was using just straight old school heroin. This was before fentanyl was like widely available. So it was just regular street heroin. And I would make the joke that like, oh, nobody will ever catch me because the only paper trail I'm leaving are the little baggies that I'm throwing out the window. Like I'm not prescribing or using anything like legal. So they'll never get me.
That's a good one. Yeah, I checked that one off. That's a great thought. I wish I thought it. But it's funny. I'm laughing. I shouldn't be laughing. This is a serious subject, but it just makes me laugh because it's so relatable. I mean, God, go ahead, keep talking because I got to listen to you more than talk to myself. I won't shut up. Go ahead, tell us more.
I had created this whole life of this image that I wanted people to see, um, but had no idea who I really was underneath it because like keeping that image up and keeping those balls in the air was taking all of my time and energy.
Exhausting, right?
I mean, like for me, a lot of the drug was, also drama and relationships and like making people think, oh God, manipulating and like creating image. Oh, I love that. That was just it gave me such a charge and like the the ability to do that because it was such a part of me to be dishonest and manipulative. Like that was everything that would give me dopamine, I wanted more and more and more of. And I just didn't know. I wound up sort of on the other side, after I got out of rehab, feeling like this empty shell of a person and like, well, what am I if I'm not that? If I'm not that dichotomy of, a functional addict, like what's left? Because I have no idea. I didn't even know. I always tell people when I got out of rehab, if you went through my music collection, you would know everything about everyone I ever dated and nothing about what I actually liked.
Hmm, that's interesting. The feeling you were talking about, I've once heard it described as being the hole in the donut. I felt like the hole in the donut because I think that's how I felt when I first got sober. And it wasn't for the 12, if it wasn't for the 12 steps and finding a way out of that with what those 12 steps did for me personally, the work you in those 12 steps, You find out who you really are, and you learn to forgive yourself for being that manipulator and duplicitous person. But then you have to build now on that. So tell us how you did that.
Yeah, so I was in a relationship actively using, and I was in my third year of medical school. So I was like floating from hospital to medical office and like learning or whatever. And I again thought I was being very like duplicitous, and I thought everybody was fooled. If you look at my actual reports from that time, from like the hospitals and the doctor's offices, I was not as sneaky as I thought. Like they were like, she's never here, she disappears, she's late all the time, hygiene is questionable, like all kinds of, stuff indicating that there was clearly
Something going on, right?
um, but I was actually sitting in the car. Uh we were staying in New Jersey. I was rotating at a medical office in New Jersey, and I didn't want to spend the money on a hotel to have to stay there. So we were staying in my car in a parking lot. And I had this thought. This was after we had made this decision like a week earlier, like we're going to start cutting down. Like here's my pie chart of how I'm going to cut down our use, and we're going to just, you know, wean ourselves off.
Very scientific. Very good.
Yes. And obviously, after one day, that plan fell apart, and I was just kind of feeling really overwhelmed and frustrated. And so I had the thought, fuck it. I'm not going to medical school. I'm just going to be a junkie for the rest of my life. And it was the first moment that I had peace, right? Because it was like this decision, this relief, this like, oh, okay, I've finally chosen a path. And within seconds, God's spotlight was shining on me and was like, who are you? This is not the girl that I brought into this world. This is not who you were meant to be. And I don't know where you get the nerve to try and mess up my plan.
That's the
Like
moment of truth.
that was a moment of truth for me. It was definitely a spiritual awakening, but at the time, I was very non-spiritual, very non-religious. I was very angry at God or the idea of God. And so it just felt like this very strange, like something's in my mind, something's going, like, what is this? And the next day, and this is interesting, and this is how God works in our lives, right? The medical office where I was rotating was a primary care office. So it was primary care physicians. For some reason, they had a psychologist, a therapist that actually worked in that office for both patients and for staff, I guess. I have never since seen that setup. I have never been in a primary care office that had that setup. But she was there, and I was having a bit of a panic attack, probably preceded by a little bit of withdrawal. And I told the doctor that I was working with, like, I'm having a panic attack. And they brought me into her office, and she sat down and, "Well, what's going on or whatever." And she said, "Have you had panic attacks before? And what's your anxiety and blah, blah, blah." And I just pulled up the sleeves of my sweater, and I showed her my track marks and started crying and said, "I don't know what to do." And that was like that was the next day after the whole in my car incident. So, and that's when things started to unfold in the direction pointing me towards recovery. Now, don't get me wrong, I was immediately regretting the decision to tell her. I was immediately regretting all of
Oh,
these
yeah.
things. I
I know
was
that
so
feeling too.
desperately trying to claw that information
No,
back
forget
in.
what I said.
Yeah,
Forget what I
forget
said.
mistake, erase,
Yeah.
erase.
Do it
Not.
over. Redo, redo. No, I know. I know that feeling.
So then she put me in touch with the state monitoring board. So when you're a physician in any state and you have a medical license or potentially can get a medical license, they have advocacy boards that will help you get treatment and then protect you from the medical board so that they can't take action against you as long as you're doing all the things. So that advocacy board got in touch with me, and then then it was like kind of this whirlwind blur of like they sent me to detox. I went to detox with this like very like all I need is detox. I'm only physically addicted. I have no love for the drug. I just get me through the detox, I'll be fine. Detox was awful. They got me through the 7 days and they let me go because I talked a good game, and I was less than 2 miles down the road before I had a needle in my arm again. And so then it was, okay, well, now you have to do this and you have to do this. And so ultimately, I wound up having to tell my school because I was still third year medical school. So I had told them I was suicidal. I told them I was taking some time off to go to detox because I was suicidal. Because at that moment, I thought having an incurable mental illness seemed much better than having a totally treatable substance use disorder. So I called the school and said, I'm suicidal and I'm going to the hospital, whatever. So after detox, when I had to go to rehab, I had to call the school and say, hey, I need further treatment. And they were like, okay, well, we need a letter from your psychiatrist. And I was like, oh man. So I had to go into my school and sit down with my dean and tell her the whole story. And she basically said, well, since you didn't get caught and since you turned yourself in, as long as you do everything that this advocacy board says, you can start third year over again and then finish. Because I had passed the boards in first and second year, so she couldn't make me start all over again, which I think she wanted to do, but she couldn't. So I went to rehab. I went to inpatient rehab at Marworth. It's in Pennsylvania through Geisinger. And they had a healthcare professionals program. So it was like a regular general population program. And then the healthcare professionals, they also had firefighters and police. Like they had real specialty counseling for each kind of department. So I went there. I met some amazing doctors that were running the program, and I did 73 days, and I really got a lot. I mean, I always kind of dismiss my first year as like this, I'm just miserable. But I will say that the time that I was in rehab was really, really substantial. I started understanding a lot of concepts about myself and my past and my trauma and like working through those things and being honest and vulnerable. And so that was definitely the start of my journey. But once I got out of rehab and moved back into like real life, I was miserable. I was going to the meetings because I had to go to 12-step meetings. That was a requirement. And I thought these are dumb.
I know. I hear you.
They're not going to help me. I'm too smart for this. This is for dumb people. And there's no way I'm going to benefit, but I have to go, so I'm going to go. And I did the exact same thing in AA that I did in high school, which is I'm going to make these people look up to me as the person that knows everything about whatever it is they're interested in. And so I was the one that was reading the big book and that would be able to regurgitate any passage from it that would be appropriate. And I would hear something profound at one meeting and take it and use it as my own in another meeting. And I'm like the mayor of AA, I'm walking around like, oh yeah, hey everybody, and most people were like, you're doing so well.
Oh,
She's doing so
wow.
well. Like
Yeah.
you're really like they really believe most of them. Some of
Yeah.
them like, but most of them thought like, oh yeah, you're doing so you're blooming like a flower blooming. Meanwhile, every other night I'm going to the bar at 1:30 in the morning, not to drink because I didn't want to get caught, but to hook up with somebody because that was the only way that I could get some dopamine.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I wanted. But yeah, I couldn't figure out though, then why am I so miserable? I'm going to these meetings, I'm saying all the little cliches I'm not using, but yeah, I'm still miserable. And it wasn't until I went to an AA meeting that was for healthcare people, a caduceus meeting, and there was a nurse there. And she was sharing a story, just like a dumb story about something that happened at the laundromat or something. But it was so profoundly authentic. Like it was so raw and honest and not self-deprecating, but self-aware. And just the way she was telling the story, I don't know, something about it made me shut up and listen. And I just thought, God, how freeing that must be. Like how freeing it must be to be able to just tell the truth and that's it, like dump it and be done. So I talked to her after that meeting and ultimately wound up asking her to be my sponsor, and she became my sponsor for the next like 3 years, and that was really when my recovery started, and I had probably a year abstinent at that point. And then that's when things changed exponentially because that's when she started helping me walk through the steps and figure out who I really was. And, and the irony of the fact that everything that I had tried to make myself appear as, I actually was at my core without trying. I just needed to let go and let it out, like I wanted people to think X, Y, and Z about me, and really that's who I was.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
really
the
beautiful.
irony of wanting people to think you're so smart, so you do all of the research, which takes a lot of effort and intelligence to regurgitate these things. That is a difficult thing to do, but with a weird motive. Clearly,
Yeah,
it's a part of you, but yeah, it's misguided or something.
it's just weird. I'm just a weird person. Like I do
Well,
weird
who
things.
isn't, you
I
know?
mean, welcome
But
to
the
the
truth is, like,
club. Welcome
I
to the
want you to,
weird club. We're all in that. I'm in that
I
club.
know
I'm in
we
the weird
are.
club. I'm pretty sure my family is too, because it is genetic.
Weirdness is
I
definitely
know.
genetic.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what you learned so much more. You became the addiction ninja. I love that.
Yeah, so I started doing addiction medicine. Well, I decided to take the family medicine route to go to addiction medicine. And I actually did my residency in family medicine up in Buffalo. And then I wanted to do an addiction medicine fellowship, which is an additional year of training after residency. And the rehab where I went to treatment had just started a fellowship. So I got to go back to the rehab where I got treatment and do a fellowship in addiction medicine with the two doctors who treated me when I was there. But I had 5 years clean at that point. So it was like full circle. So I got to be on both sides of the bed essentially. Um, and so at that time, this was like 15 years ago, there were not very many addiction medicine specialists in the country. And so I started applying for jobs, and it was just addiction medicine was just starting to kind of come because of the opioid crisis and everything was just starting to like come to light. So all these big hospital systems were hiring for like medical directors and stuff. And my ego was like, oh, I could do that. I'll do that. But reality is that, and thank God I have people in my life and from in the rooms to be like, that's a bit much for you. You don't need that kind of responsibility. So I was going on interviews, and one of the interviews was in Akron, Ohio, and it was at Summa Hospital, which is where Ignatia Hall is, which is the first hospital that ever treated alcoholics with Dr. Bob and Sister Ignatia.
Right. That's right. Yeah, I know that. Yep.
So I went to an interview at that hospital thinking this is just a practice interview. I'm not moving to Akron, Ohio. Um, and it turned out to be the best, most well-defined, and most appropriate job for me at my level. So I wound up moving to, well, near Akron, Ohio. And so I was actually in the hospital where Dr. Bob and Sister Ignatia treated patients. I was running Ignatia Hall, the detox unit. I
Wow.
was like, yeah, like Dr. Bob's direct descendant. I'm like, what better place is there to start your addiction medicine career?
Oh my
The
gosh.
street that the hospital's on is called Dr. Bob's Way.
Wow.
And on Founders Day every year, everybody flocks to Akron, to the University of Akron, and one of the things they can do is get on a bus and come to the hospital where I was working and go through because we had like lots of stuff, memorabilia and stuff about Sister Ignatia. So it was just like a really cool start to my career.
You just gave me chills. Just honest to God, this gave me chills. Um, I read somewhere that the 12 steps were written in 1860 by a Jesuit named Brother Ignatius. I hope I'm right. I better Google it. But what I read was that it was created by this guy, Brother Ignatius, in 1860, I think it was. And he did it because at that time, he said that people, mankind, were becoming, they looked at the Bible and God as an anachronism. They have no relationship with their higher power, none whatsoever. So he wrote the 12 steps, not saying that I'm powerless over alcohol, but I'm powerless, period. And that he came to believe a power greater than themselves was going to restore them to sanity. And he did that to create what he thought was going to be an experiential faith. So someone could find an actual methodical way to acquire spiritual awakening. And that's, I think, what the 12 steps kind of do. And I remember when I first got the 12 steps, and maybe the second year of my actual sobriety, I would say that at meetings. I would say, it's like baking a cake. I say, like, if you follow the steps, just like if you're baking a cake, right? What do? You take some eggs, put them in a bowl. You take some to mix, put it in a bowl. Pour in the water or whatever, the milk, stir it all up. It's a goop, right? You set the oven for something, 375, and you let it preheat. You follow the directions and you put it in the oven, set the timer, and as soon as it goes ding, you open it up. And fuck, it's a miracle. It's a cake. Like I would say, how did that happen? How did this thing become a cake? It was goop. And that's exactly what the 12 steps do. They actually are that kind of a miracle. I mean, it's like baking a cake. You just got to follow those steps exactly as they're laid out and do them really thoroughly, and you'll get that cake.
Vernon, I use, not even kidding you, the exact same analogy, except I
I love
I
it.
essentially say if you take your ingredients of honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, and you just decide to mix a bunch of stuff together, like your eggs and but you're just mixing flour and eggs and milk and whatever, and you just stick it in the oven and you guess the temperature, you may or may not get something good at the end. But
Right?
if you take those ingredients and you follow the exact recipe, and you bake it as prescribed, then yes, at the end, you'll have a delicious cake. But even better, what if you had the option to have somebody from the Food Network, like Bobby Flay, talking you through how to sift your flour and how to cream your butter? And so you'll have an even more delicious cake. And that to me is what the sponsor is. So,
Yeah.
like,
Oh, yeah.
the
That's it.
steps provide you the recipe, and then the sponsor is like a professional talking you through how to do it. Same exact, though. Same exact.
That's wild. That's wild. I still to this day believe that everybody should do the 12 steps. I mean,
Agreed.
I'm totally a believer. I mean, I think there's no other spiritual program on the earth today that is it as effective as that. And I've never seen anybody that did it thoroughly not get to the promises where they have a life second to none, where they have all these things come true. I mean, you actually have a higher power in your life. You can actually, when you do things, you can handle things intuitively that used to baffle you. I mean, that's the fruit of these doing these steps. I must have handed out hundreds of 12 and 12s as soon as I got it. I mean, handed to people. I don't know where those books ended up. They probably ended up in the trash for some of those people. But I didn't care. I kept buying them and handed them out. You got to read this book and do it like it says. You'll get a
Right.
cake. But I still feel that way. I'm still pretty passionate about it. That's one of the reasons I love the show, and the reason I knew you were going to be great, because this is the message. I can't believe it. You actually had the cake analogy. That is so fantastic.
I know. I mean, I'm surprised you never told me about the 12 steps like growing up. It
You
was
know,
very not
I was
present.
I think I was Al-Anon in myself to death. It came to the point where you let go and let people have their journey until they want something. If they ask you for that help, then you're right there with it. That's what I learned in Al-Anon, which is a very sophisticated use of the 12 steps because it gets into the fine points of actual human relationships. And part of the Al-Anon thing is you let people have their own journey. They need to hit their own bottom. They need to have their own experiences. And then when they come around and they're open and receptive, you're there with the answers. You're there with the instructions. So that maybe is it. Why I'm making amends to you right now, Vernon. This is my living
So
amends to my
that's
child.
what that is. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm curious because as someone who's not like specifically addicted, I mean, I probably am. Like, I'm addicted to like food and stuff, and definitely dopamine isn't like, becomes addicting in various things, like in food and stuff. Um, it does seem like just a generally a good thing to read, just to have the tools.
I'll
Uh,
send you a copy of the 12 and 12.
boom, dig it out of the trash.
Uh,
I got several copies upstairs in the box.
I will tell you that I worked the 12 steps in AA for like to stop using. And I did have obviously a spiritual awakening because that's what the 12th step says. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of 1 through 11, now you have this message you need to share with other people, right? That's what the 12th step is. But I will tell you that I got married in my third or fourth year of sobriety to somebody else who was also in recovery, and he wound up relapsing And our relationship became very, very codependent, like very unhealthy. Like I was not using, I was going to my meetings, he was not. And it was like I fixated on him the way I fixated on drugs. Like I was
Yep.
constantly worried about what he was doing and my debit card sleeping in the pillowcase and hiding the keys. And like I'm at work, I'm at residency trying to like see patients, and I'm like distracted thinking about like, is this dude at my house trying to sell my TV? Like it was a lot of chaos. And so someone was like, well, then you need to go to Al-Anon. You need to go to Al-Anon and work a program there around this relationship. And it was in Al-Anon where I really found like the most profound spiritual growth in my entire life.
Me
Uh,
too.
Same 12 steps,
Yep.
but the growth was really just remarkable.
Yeah, it is.
Wait, interesting. I mean, as someone who kind of doesn't know about this stuff that well,
That's
what
perfect.
is
Like
the,
most of our audience. Go ahead.
Yeah.
sure, I'll represent the dummies out there.
No, no, no. Let's
What
not say
Not
that.
dummies,
is,
They're not dummies.
inexperienced.
Just
I know,
yeah.
I was just being cheeky. But but what I know that Al-Anon is for when you have a relationship with an addict. So it's not you're the addict, it's your how to handle your relationship. But what it's surprising to me that that would be the more profound spiritual awakening. Is it because you are like sort of doing the effort for someone and it gets you super out of yourself? What is that?
No. Go ahead. You can answer this one.
It's about that you are the problem. If you are in a
Oh,
relationship with someone that has substance use and they are impacting you in any way, like negatively, it's because
oh,
you're the problem, not they have their own problem they got to deal with, but you start to look at them as the problem in your life. They are the ones causing all the issues. It's them, and not paying attention to the fact that I am not taking care of myself. I am not looking at what's important to me. I am just being angry and resentful and focused on them, and they are my drug. That they become the drug of choice. And so going to Al-Anon, literally the 12 steps in Al-Anon are exactly the same. The first step is I'm powerless over alcohol and my life has become unmanageable. Even though I'm not drinking, the my person is, and I'm powerless over it in the same way they are. Like
That's
I
right.
can't change them.
Yeah. And that's why, I
whoa.
guess, that's probably why, I mean, I didn't preach the 12 steps to my children. I mean, I hope to live it by example, but I didn't. I thought because of what I learned in Al Anon, I thought that would be probably make you more against it than anything. I think the do's and don'ts of Al Anon will tell you, don't fixate on the alcoholic. Don't constantly like be like you can't be calling them up saying how you doing all the time. You can't do that. You can't. There's a lot of the do's and don'ts. I find I live by them actually to this day, and they're very important to me. The Al-Anon program is, I think, really the most. You said it, Nicole. It's the sophisticated version of how they use the 12 steps, and it was who was written. It was written by Dr. Bob's wife, I
Wife.
believe. Yeah, which makes so much sense.
It does.
Because I do believe
So,
that. Yeah, go ahead,
sorry.
Fred.
I mean, so it's obviously not just applying to alcoholics. Like you can apply these things
People,
like a
places, and things.
substance.
People,
Sure.
places, and things. We're powerless over everything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious. I don't want to make this podcast into like an AA meeting necessarily,
Too
but
late.
like,
Yeah.
sure. Because then like, I don't know. I don't even know what to ask because it is very interesting to view someone like if someone else's addiction is affecting you, that is becoming your obsession or addiction in a way.
You get dopamine from it. You do get some
It's
sort
all
of satisfaction. You know.
right. And look, full transparency, part of me is like resisting that because it's like, well, this person is doing that to me.
True.
So yeah, too right. And I suppose I am the one who is allowing it.
Correct.
I think
Correct.
So then my question is, if you love and care about somebody, like undeniably like their like longtime friend, relationship, family, whatever, how then do you best take care of them or do what you can? Is it then just like, is this what boundaries when boundaries come into place? Because I've also
Absolutely.
had trouble asserting boundaries and then having that be sort of flipped against you.
Mhm.
And then
And
it's
then
like, well, I guess I just have to know more than the person in this moment or something.
Something like that. I
But
think that's pretty accurate, right,
yeah,
Nicole?
I think
Yeah.
that's pretty accurate as well. So essentially you stay in your hula hoop. You create a hula hoop and you can only control everything inside that hula hoop and you cannot control anything outside that hula hoop. So the way that they perceive you, the way that they hear what you're saying, the way that they come back at you and respond, none of that's your responsibility.
You can't,
Only
ah,
the
you
three,
feel how you
you got
respond.
to use the three C's. You didn't cause it, you can't control it, and you can't cure it. And then those three C's have to be there. And that, and one of the things I love about Al-Anon too is, and in AA, it's there too. You keep the focus on yourself. Like if you look at when you point a finger at somebody, right? This is yeah, you got three fingers pointing at yourself, one finger pointing at the person, and the thumb is at, you know, God, I guess.
Well, and essentially, the 12 steps are really just like you break them into chunks, like the first three, second three, third three, fourth three. And basically all they're saying is the first three steps, you're going, okay, I acknowledge there's a problem here and I need to do something to fix it. And what I've been doing isn't working, so I need to accept that there's something that can help me do it.
It's a power greater than yourself.
Right. Which you could interpret in any way that you're comfortable. Like for me, I told you I was very like anti-religion, anti-God. For me, when I went into AA, the power greater than myself was simply that if I went out into the parking lot and attempted to lift up a vehicle, I would be unable to do it. But if the whole group of us surrounded that vehicle and all tried, we would probably be able to get the vehicle off of the ground. So a group of people is physically stronger than me myself. Therefore, there is a something that's more powerful than me. And it was real simple like that for me because I couldn't get the whole
Yeah,
pie in the sky thing.
me
So,
either. I did
and then that
definitely.
grew over time, that became more, but just accepting that a group of people was more powerful in any way than just me by myself. That became my higher power for a while and then it grew. So after you kind of find your higher power and you accept there's a problem, you move on to the next set of steps, which are really all about digging through all the trash, like looking at your history, looking at your resentments, looking at your fears, looking at all the times you pointed your finger at somebody else and had three pointing back at you, and like what was your part in all of that, you know? And because we play a part in every resentment, every fear, every negative interaction we have someone with someone, we play a part in that. And even things like being molested as a child. Like I played no part in that. That was not my fault. I had nothing to do with that. But my part was that I carried that chip on my shoulder for the next 25 years and used it as an excuse to say fuck you to everybody else because this happened to me. That was my part,
interesting.
you
Wow,
know?
Okay, so
that's
so
really cool.
follow-up question, because that is heavy.
Yeah.
Um, but makes sense. But also now I'm asking as like a someone who is like well versed in like the medical field. What do you have to say about like the physical, like carrying the physical trauma and like how that informs you in like a subconscious way? Is that like, because I think like how could you blame yourself for that? But in a way, I suppose
Well, you don't. And that's the thing. It's not about blaming. You don't blame yourself at all. It's not about blame. It's about accepting responsibility for whatever part of that
I
entire
see.
history is yours. So, because if I'm just angry and resentful all the time, it's not about like, oh, I forgive him and like, no, no. I forgive him because that makes me feel better. And that's a lesson I've learned over time. I forgive you because I don't want to think about you anymore. And I don't want you to rent space in my head for free. And I don't want to give you any more of me than you've already taken. And so that's kind of like, but the only way for that to happen is to let it go. Like you have to let it go. But if it's just sitting in you and like festering and like that anger, it's always there. People see it. It's the chip on your shoulder. It's kind of the cynical like wall that you have up that you don't let anybody in. Like that was my part. Not dealing with the trauma is was my part in that. And so we all play a part in anything that's making us physically or mentally, emotionally like stuck. It's the tendency is to blame. They did it to me, right? But the
Yeah,
reality
man.
is
Oh
I
my God.
let it.
That is really powerful stuff. I mean, really powerful. I'm actually myself going through that exact thing in my own 35 years later, recovery, I'm still digging up something that was holding me back. I definitely had held on to almost like child abuse. I mean, I was 22 and I got abused, not physically, but taken advantage of as a musician. And I was screwed royally by people who I trusted. And I did my fourth step years ago, and I didn't even try to rework that one. I said, "Oh, I'm going to keep that. I'm going to always want to hate those mother effers. So let me keep that." And go, lo and behold, yeah, I went out again because that will do it. That's all you need to do is hold on to that resentment. And if you don't go out, well, then you're living pretty miserable. You do have that. You might look a little arrogant sometimes. You might come up with stuff you wish you didn't say. Why did I act like that? Why did I react like that? When you get rid of that stuff, when you get rid of all that, for me, I'm doing that now. I'm doing another fourth and fifth, and I'm finding it to be so, what a blessing. It's removing a lot of those old, stupid things. I don't know what I was doing. Matter of fact, I talked to somebody about it. It says, what you did was you wanted, it was like a voodoo doll. You held it so you could every once in a while take it out and stick pins in it. Like, what are you doing? What a waste of time, right? What a waste of energy. But I did it, and it ruined, my happiness for quite a few years that I didn't let it go. And I'm finally realizing, yeah, man, let it the effing go. Because
Yeah.
it doesn't it's not it's powerless unless you give it power. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's renting space in my head for sure. And I went years, every so often when things weren't going my way, I'd go, yeah, well, if they didn't do that to me back then, oh boy, would things be different now? Oh boy, it's not my fault. Nope, I didn't do anything. No, I did. I held on to it. I did. Instead of learning from it, because let's face it, bad things happen to good people all the time. We have to learn from them. We have to, take it and say, what's the lesson here?
Well, that's the gift of a good program of recovery to me is that like when I was actively using, if you told me the stove was hot, I needed to touch it and then I needed to touch it again with my left hand and then I needed to put my face on it and sit on it and make sure it was hot, because I don't trust you. But in recovery, I get to make the choice to trust that the stove's hot because you said it. So like I always think of it like I in the rooms, I stand on the shoulders of giants who have been there before me, and that allows me to see further than if I'm just standing on the ground tripping over my own feet. So, like, I see people make that mistake of holding those resentments and not letting those go, and then just seeing them be stuck, like this gray cloud of just misery. And you're like, how are you not seeing this? How are you not seeing that you are your problem? It's not them. It's not that job or that boss or that spouse or whatever. It's you. Let it go. You have to let it go.
Yeah.
So that's the gift. Like you get to see other people letting it go and then experiencing that freedom and that relief. And then you go, oh, okay, maybe I will do that.
Well, this is wonderful. I mean, absolutely wonderful. This is so cool. I mean, it is like a lot of like an AA meeting. It is really like
It
we're
is.
experiencing
My
just,
first one.
yeah,
Nice.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks.
in full view of the public here, not anonymous.
I know. Shoot.
Yeah,
Um,
but that's okay. So what you're doing now, what exactly would you say? Sum it all up what you're doing with your life now.
So I'm medical director of a bunch of different facilities. So I write the policies and the protocols for how we're treating people in addiction medically. Um, I also do a lot of education for the community, like for at churches and I do podcasts or I'm on social media. I do snippets of education and I really try to, and this is like, and it's between you and me, but and now the whole podcast, but really a lot of the neurology that I talk about the brain chemistry and the biology of the brain in like my social media where I'll be like, oh, like one day at a time, this is what's happening in your brain when we say one day at a time. This is why it's helpful. And I take a lot of this stuff from the program. I don't specifically credit the program because there are a lot of people that hate it or that are had bad experiences or heard terrible things that have created entire social media platforms going like anti 12 step. And you can't, I mean, you can't fight that, right? And I didn't want my platform to be like just the defense of 12 steps, but I do feel like a lot of the 12-step program is based in science. It's based in neurology, and they didn't know it at the time. It unfolded the opposite, right? We did the things first and then learned about why it's working later. So I do a lot of talking about that, about the brain and how it works. And like I try to tie it into different concepts that are related to recovery in general.
Oh, wow. That's a beautiful place to end the podcast right there. Thank you
Thank
so
you, because it does feel like these are tools that would benefit everybody, and then sometimes it has this, oh well, I'm not an addict as far as I know, so why would I be in AA? But I think that clearly what I've seen now is that these are just good for life, good tools for life,
For
and
everybody.
practicing humility in toward yourself is the biggest thing I'm taking away. Just
and humility doesn't
admitting,
and humility doesn't mean thinking less of yourself. It means thinking of yourself less.
oh my God, put it on a popsicle stick. I'm sorry.
Right?
The t-shirt
Um,
said that.
but no, thank you very much. And I feel like there's more. There's more we could have gotten into about your career now.
Let's do it again.
Yeah, we're going to definitely. Oh my goodness, yes, we're going to do a series with you for sure. Going to pump it up too because I
Cool.
can't. You know me, I want to hand out 12 and 12s everywhere I go. This is my way of doing that with the podcast. Excellent.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
can't
we can
wait to
just
do
do
it
it
again.
again.
Yeah, we'll do it again. But thank you for joining us on Out of the Blue, and thank you everybody for joining us. This has been a great episode of Out of the Blue with Dr. Nicole Labor.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're so welcome.
Much
Thanks,
love.
Vernon. Thank
Thank
you
you
very
so
much.
much. All right, bye guys.
Bye,
Bye.
Vernon 3.
And
Thank you.
VC3 we
V3.
call him.
All right, later.
Correction. St. Ignatius of Loyola wrote the precursor to the 12 steps known as the spiritual exercises between 1522 and 1524. Out of the Blue, the podcast, hosted by me, Vernon West, co-hosted by Vernon West III, edited by Joe Gallo, music and logo by Vernon West III. Have an Out of the Blue story of your own you'd like to share? Reach us at info@outoftheblue-thepodcast.org. Subscribe to Out of the Blue on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and on our website, outoftheblue-thepodcast.org. You can also check us out on Patreon for exclusive content.